Thank you so much for having me here this evening. It is a true honor to stand before you and to share my charism discernment. To give you a little background on myself, I already said my name is Jacqueline. I'm married to Jeff. We go together. We're by each other's side all the time. We have 4 sons, ages 4 to 10, and we've been at OLGC for 7 years. There are 2 important days in your life: the day you were born and the day you discover why. Mark Twain wrote these words, and when I read them for the first time, they pierced my heart. Because for the first time, it occurred to me that I was born for a reason, that God had a purpose for my life, and it was my job to not only figure out what that was, but to live it out. So after I read these words, I moved forward in prayer, a lot of prayer. It seemed I was in prayer all day long. Everywhere I went, I was just constantly communicating to God and asking Him to show me more of who I was, to show me more of His world, and to show me how He wanted me to fit into this world. And I started to get images of a field, and I got the sense that this field was my life. And around this time, I came across the verse, 1 Corinthians 3:9. And the words say, "You are God's field." So this was confirmation. Yes, what you are receiving in prayer is truly from the Lord. I signed up for Called and Gifted in an effort to discover my charisms. I thought, by discovering my charisms, it has to lead me closer to figuring out what my purpose is. God equipped me with these charisms to live out this mission. And so, to be honest, I thought I fit into this world in some kind of prayer ministry. I felt very comfortable with prayer. I love to pray. But what the Lord revealed to me through the workshop was the charism of prophecy. And just the name prophecy took me aback. I thought, this seems like it should be something reserved for the super holy, the super wise, definitely not me. But something in my spirit just would not let it go. And I thought, the worst that could happen is I discern and I realize that this is not my charism, which would still bring me closer to discovering what my charisms were. So I moved forward just step by step. This looked like showing up for my Called and Gifted interview. This looked like praying. This looked like reading all of the assigned reading that my Called and Gifted interviewer gave to me. So over the next few months, I read and I prayed, and I reserved the time in Mass after receiving Holy Communion for the Lord. And I just gave Him a completely blank canvas to do whatever it was that He wanted to do. And during this time, I started to receive very vivid, powerful images. I saw my grandfather walk into the kingdom. I saw a friend who took his own life several years ago stand in the presence of the Lord and say, "I fight for Jesus now." And I saw myself bowed down in service to the Lord. And another notable experience that happened was during Mass one day, a woman in the pew behind me started to feel faint. And she was receiving medical attention. People were praying over her. But I got this sense of the Holy Spirit. And what that feels like for me is goosebumps. So I just started to pray. And I saw angels over her, fanning her with their wings. And they were not only cooling her off, but they were sending peace and love to her from our Father in heaven. So it's one thing to receive these images in prayer and to pray with them, but the charism of prophecy is to be a divine channel from God to another. So there was an unrest of spirit that I couldn't get over. I knew I was receiving these images for others, but I just could not deliver the messages without discerning further. It seemed far too bold to say that I was hearing from the Lord. So I knew I needed to discern further. So what that looked like was I spent 2 intense days at the Encounter School of Prophetic Ministry. That was just 2 weeks ago. And to say I was out of my comfort zone is a complete understatement. My first experience praying with another person, I was paired up with a gentleman, and my knees were just knocking together. I was so nervous, and my palms were sweaty, my heart was racing, and I clasped my hands together in prayer. I squeezed my eyes shut, and I just prayed for the Holy Spirit to come, and I let go. And after that prayer, I opened my eyes, and the panic came right back. And I realized, okay, the prayer part is over. Now you get to deliver this message and see if it resonates. So I delivered the message to the man, and immediately he looked away. And in my mind, this was confirmation that he's looking for his next prayer partner. What are you doing here? You do not have the charism of prophecy. And then he quickly turned back, and I could see tears falling from his eyes, and he was very uncomfortable that he was crying. And he just shared what had been going on in his life to that point, and what I had spoke to him resonated so deeply that it brought him to tears. That weekend, I prayed with close to 25 people. I can't say that every single experience was as powerful as that first encounter, but while I was there, I learned a prophetic process, and I learned a way to communicate the images that I was receiving. And following that up, I also met with my spiritual director, which was key in unpacking everything that I had learned at the conference, and key in answering any questions that I had that remained that couldn't be addressed at the conference. So one thing that I want to really express is that being available to the Lord to work through me was something I had to make time for. And it was something that I had to gain confidence in. Daily, this looks like offering silence to the Lord to speak. Weekly, it looks like praying over my sons, my husband, and anyone else that the Lord puts in my path with that prophetic process that I learned a few weeks ago. And I also still offer that time after Holy Communion to the Lord, and I bring my journal to Mass to journal out anything that I might receive. And this has been a long journey, and I know that it's not over yet. The Lord continues to develop this charism in new ways. And what I want to express is it wasn't comfortable. It was really hard, but it was worth it. So do I feel like I've completely discovered my why, my God-given mission? Not yet. But I do feel like I'm inching closer. So I truly hope that by hearing my words, you're encouraged to step out in bold faith to follow the Lord. I know that it isn't always easy, and the Lord may ask things of you that cause your knees to shake and your hands to tremble. But again, it's worth it. It's worth it to grow closer to the Lord and to draw closer to discovering your why, the reason for which you were born. So may God be your guide as you embark on your own discernment journey. In His name, I'll be praying for you. Thank you.